This is the 8th episode and we don't have a theme song, so I'm singing this silly tune. Oh yeah! And hello again. Dear listener, this is the Minsk and Friends Speakeasy, going now on its 8th episode. Thank you again for joining us. My name is Minsk.
I am the Friends.
Yes, we also have friends this time, better known as Joonatan. Thank you again for being here.
Huzzah.
I guess I should maybe elaborate a little bit. I've never really mentioned it too much, but it is a bit of an egocentric thing to call the channel that, but I always kind of pictured I would be mainly doing by myself, but I did want to include my friends, but it would be weird if, it would be weird if the majority of the episodes are just me, to then just have, to not have, my name somewhere show up. It'd be weird to, advertise it as, a multi-group thing when the majority is me by my lonesome. So that's why I ended up with the somewhat egocentric title. I hope you don't mind that, Joonatan.
I mean, it's your podcast and your channel and everything. You could call it Minsk, just Minsk, and nothing else. And you would be totally entitled to.
The Minsk and Lackeys show.
Yes.
No, that's a little too much. So this is what we're rolling with now. So thank you again indeed for joining us again. I hope you guys enjoyed our previous episode as we chattered about Wasteland 3. Now we are moving on with the year, with the big upcoming scoops. This episode is going to be a throwback a little bit back to the first episode we did, which was the Final Fantasy VII preview. We're doing a preview today as well, rather than a full-blown review, because it was the right time for that. Let's first quickly talk about the game we're not previewing, which is Baldur's Gate 3, a game which, we've mentioned on several episodes now, and we are quite excited for, but we decided to bail on talking about the early access version of that. You have a really good article on your website that serves a really good first look of it. Maybe you can elaborate for our listeners as well as why we're not exactly delving into it right now in detail.
Well, long story short, it's not finished. It's not even remotely finished. It's very much a work in progress, and after having spent about 2 weeks with it now, I still haven't completed the everything that it has to offer. Even if it's unfinished, it's still over 25 hours of material. But it's very buggy. It's got multiple placeholder things, just stuff that isn't. It's not fit to talk about at a length of that we would have experienced it in a way that would do it justice. So I wrote a first look talking about what is finished right now. It's going to be about 100 to 120 hour game, depending on how you play it. And you have about 20 hours of it available right now. So about maybe just the first chapter of the game.
Which, of course, is nice for people who want a really big, meaty RPG to know that, just the first part is that huge. But
right. But the good thing is that Larian, the developer, is currently taking all the feedback from players on how to make this a better experience. So all the bug reports, all the suggestions, everything are certainly read. So for people who want to get in on it, at the ground level to kind of, get further in and kind of give their feedback and help build the product into something else, they should absolutely go into it. But everybody who plays it now needs to understand this is basically like seeing an unfinished film. So it's not something we felt comfortable judging or talking about just yet.
Yeah, I mean, myself, what I'd like to, of course, do is make my D&D character in the game. And seeing as not every class is implemented yet, or not every race is implemented yet, I could not make either of the two characters I've played in 5th edition D&D. So that, immediately, I'd make just some generic guy instead, and then have to switch to my, my monk or my kobold later and have to do it all over again. That doesn't sound super pleasant to me at all. So I didn't want to jump in on this game at all once I realized that was the case.
Right, and I couldn't build my character from our campaign either.
Right, because it's a sorcerer, and that's still missing from it as well, isn't it?
Yes, almost all of the major classes are still missing.
Yeah, I think they promised that every class from the rulebook is going to be in the finished product, but it's only like 6 at this point, I think. 6 or 5.
Yeah.
So I didn't want to jump in on this game, but I'm still fairly hopeful. Like, it wasn't part of the reason that Larian decided to do this was that they actually were having trouble with funding. So this was a way of making some money to close the ending of the production of the game.
Yeah, so making a game is really, really, really expensive. And the biggest thing that they have to have here right now is that they're trying to get the game funded to the point that it can come out one day.
And the funny thing is that Larian seems to be... I've checked their history, and they seem to suffer with this throughout their history. Like the very first game that they were putting out, Divine Divinity, like they almost did not get funding for that, and they had to do crazy scrambling. So this is like par for the course for these poor guys.
It is, and it's a shame because they make really, really good games.
But on the flip side, that's promising. It looks like this is not going to be a scam early access, since they have a track record of having to struggle and pull through at the final ending. Like, they have always gotten a finished product out, and, well, you know, their early work, maybe quality-wise, maybe aren't the best, but they've improved throughout their career, as far as I can tell. I haven't played their latest games yet, but they review so well with the people that I'm not worried about the production of this, even though they had to jump in on this mode of production with early access.
Yeah, I mean, I really loved Original Sin 2.
Right.
It has its issues in combat, but other than that, it is a superb and really, really, really dense RPG. And it's one of those things that if you like that kind of stuff, you are in heaven with it.
Yeah. That's one of, again, another one on my short list when I get around to playing a big, meaty RPG. It's one of those I'm going to be waffling over. And as I have to say about the whole... is it ethical, this kind of production, to like sell this unfinished product with the promise that it's going to be done eventually? For me, this is still preferable to what CD Projekt is now doing with Cyberpunk, because they are also having trouble finishing the game, and they've actually just gone into full-blown crunch mode. And I thought about it. Which one would I rather prefer? Is like this early release of an unfinished product to like whet the appetite of hardcore fans versus crunching, which is really, really, really bad. I take this over the crunch potential. I would not want to hear that Larian were crunching for this game.
Oh, absolutely. I would much rather take early access than crunch because it's not worth it.
Yeah, I know it's like the hot product at the moment. I'm a little bummed out on Cyberpunk at the moment. They've had some problems with representation of sexual minorities or trans issues have been popping up all the damn time. Now coupled with this whole problems with the workplace, with this crunch coming out of nowhere. I don't really know if I want to actually get that game when it releases at the moment, if we're perfectly honest.
Oh, I haven't seen the things on the trans representation. I will have to look into that.
It is like, if there was one or two, I think you could chalk it up to what they've talked about. Like, it's supposed to be a dystopian future, so that's not like something. It's supposed to be a bad thing, but they have stuff that goes beyond that they've had with like the weirdest one is that your selection of tone of voice is going to determine what pronouns the NPCs use when they talk to you. it's really baffling to me how someone came to that decision, and baffling that it hasn't, like, you can't take that feature out now, because it has not tracked well, obviously. It's kind of a weird decision to me.
Okay, has that been like recently confirmed or something? Because the last thing I heard was when I talked to them in August, it was that there are no gender options in the game. That it's you choose what you want as your thing,
okay.
and then you can just choose whatever sound you want for that as well.
I'm not sure when this came out, but I haven't seen any talk about it not being it. I've seen like it's true. I haven't seen like an actual footage of this in case, but the discussion has been that there is this weird voice thing where your selection of voice determines the pronouns used for your characters, which isn't ideal since in the trans community that's a sore topic is the tone of voice. Good point, though. I haven't looked into the actual character creator, what they've shown of it so far, so it's worth looking into.
Right, and I mean, I'll be getting my hands on the game in about a week or two, so I'll be able to also talk a little bit more about it. But from what I've seen about it is that, and this is personally just what I've seen people write about the game, there's been, because it's the first big Cyberpunk thing that's coming out, it is something that it's becoming a lightning rod for people to put on huge expectations on it.
That's very true.
As a representational product.
Yeah.
And I understand the need for it. Especially because Cyberpunk historically is something that allows for that and is built around that kind of stuff, that you can essentially become anything and be anyone without judgment. And the fact that they have opened the doors themselves to it by announcing very, very early on that you can, mix your gender, you can do whatever you want with it almost. I don't think it's inherently a bad thing that they're trying.
Yeah.
And even if they fail with it, or if they stumble with it, I think it's already necessary that it's there. But right now, because the information that's out of it is, well, let's face it, they have a horrible PR person. Whoever is in charge of their social media is just awful.
Yeah, exactly. That's also where a lot of these blunders are coming from.
Yeah, their communication is very Polish, so it's very blunt. The humor is very insular. That doesn't translate online, and they just don't seem to have a clear idea of how to assert themselves or to, watch out for these stumbles when they happen. Now, it could be entirely that they aren't smart enough to consider these things, and they've just kind of put stuff in there because of how it looks, which is always unfortunate. But at the moment, the things about stuff like this, I wouldn't put huge amounts of stock into it until we actually see the full thing. There's a bunch of people that I'm tangentially aware of, and people who I'm friendly with, who have worked on the game, who are voice actors or actors in the game.
Okay.
Who are the furthest you could imagine from being transphobic.
Okay.
And they have absolutely nothing but good things to say about the production in terms of what is in it in the content.
Okay.
Of course, they've been hugely critical of the company with the workplace methods of the crunch, of how developers are treated. But in terms of content of what they have seen, they have been very openly happy with it.
All right. Well, that's good to hear that there's some some like a more like a positive take from someone in there, so to speak.
Right, but again, who knows what happens with it? But like as we're talking here, I looked up, I typed in Cyberpunk 2077 transphobic, and I typed in 2077 racist into the thing. The ones that are coming out, and again, this is not saying that there aren't valid concerns, like the one advertisement they made, which seemed to not really understand what a trans person actually is. It was a lot of like, let's just throw in as much, imagery of genitalia as we can.
Yes, exactly.
Apart from that, there's things like there's one big article from Sausage Roll that is complaining about that the game is racist because it has a car that is modeled after the General Lee from Dukes of Hazzard.
Uh-huh.
And that, how dare you have a racist car in it, or a car that, is from a show that had problematic elements. And those are things like, can the car be racist? Can an inclusion of an iconic car be, a problem? Because by that logic, I would argue that Keanu Reeves has done some problematic movies in his past, but everybody seems to be hugely in love with his persona today.
Well, yes, I suppose one is an icon and the other is a person. So, I don't know.
Yeah, it's a huge issue. It's a difficult issue, and I think one that I definitely don't have answers in, or even a fully formed opinion yet. I wish that these games were more accessible. I wish every game was more accessible.
Yeah.
And I wish that the community would not be such a ocean of dickheads who get their panties in a twist over the inclusion of women or men or trans people or minorities of any kind.
Exactly.
It was already immensely harmful for the community to watch in the summer as how people reacted to The Last of Us, because that game, for all the problems that I had with it in terms of gameplay, was immensely important because it was a game that featured 2 female protagonists. It featured trans characters, it featured multiple minority characters, and it was one of the best-selling games of all time. So a huge leap forward in terms of that kind of representation.
Yeah.
It got buried under bullshit hatred and bigotry.
Yeah, I remember that myself. That was unpleasant to read, and I wasn't even, I haven't played the game, so I wasn't even super deep into looking up stuff, and it still came up where I was looking into that game.
I was into it because I did a major review on it, like a 7-page thing where I tried to explain where I was coming from. And because I wasn't a fan of how the gameplay worked, I felt the gameplay was at odds with the story that it was telling.
Yeah, I remember we've talked about that at length.
Yeah, but it was really difficult to get that out there because every time the conversation would try to veer, that people would be like that. The people who you were trying to reach by saying that you can dislike the game for the gameplay, but you have to understand the story is doing something impressive. And there was no bridge to build over that. It was too much of a chasm between everybody. And I'm worried that those people who are on that side, who are screaming about how they don't want so-called politics in their games when it deals with, women or minorities, I think that, and this is going back to Cyberpunk, I think that giving them ammunition by dealing with trans topics loosely or dealing with them not well, which is what people are worried about that Cyberpunk will do, is going to give them more ammunition of being hateful and hurtful. So I totally understand why people are worried and why you're worried and why many people are being turned off from the game. I really hope that that is not the case because of the times that I've spoken with CDR project people. They've come off as smart, eloquent folks. But again, I realize that speaking as a white, cisgendered man, that's the easiest possible thing to say.
Yeah.
That, hey, they've always been good to me because...
Yeah. Well, because, yeah.
Yeah, I'm literally the target audience for everything.
Yeah, that is. And you can probably tell I'm also, I'm not the most equipped to talk about these topics as a fellow white guy, cis guy. So, maybe I'm, barking up the wrong tree, or maybe I'm being unnecessarily sensitive myself. But, I don't know. I just wanted to, while we were broaching the topic of these big RPGs coming up, it's been a bit, there's some question marks come up with the production of that game. Maybe, maybe we'll bring that up as a topic on our podcast. I'll get it then in that case for review purposes.
Oh yeah, and it's an interesting topic, and we definitely should talk about it, as much as the two of us can talk about it.
Yes, obviously I'd prefer to hear from the actual people affected the most, but...
Right. Well, I have a good friend of mine who is a trans gamer and comedian who I was thinking of bringing in as an interview subject for when I review the game.
All right, that sounds really good.
Yeah, I think he would be very interested in probably talking to us as well.
Okay.
Because I think that we could get a much better view on the whole thing from him than what we have. And I know, because my view is extremely limited, I'm going to be looking at it from how has it been done in the books, how has it been done in the previous depictions, but it's not going to be as intersectional, as culturally aware as I would like.
Yeah, exactly. That sounds like a really fun idea. Good thinking. We'll look into that.
Yeah, but we should probably talk about something that's totally not political and...
Oh, yes.
Completely and absolutely apolitical and not, controversial at all. Call of Duty.
Absolutely. That sterling series, A couple of episodes when we wrapped up Death Stranding, we talked about how we'd like to maybe do an episode next on something not so huge AAA. That's why we got out the Wasteland 3 episode. And now we got this indie darling, Call of Duty, to talk about. I don't know how well you know this series, Jonathan. It's a little obscure.
It is quite obscure. I don't think they release games so rarely. They kind of pass you by if you don't pay attention.
Yeah, well, in my case, they kind of have, because I haven't engaged with the series in a long while. But obviously, we're being facetious. Call of Duty is in the late aughts, I'd say it was kind of the face of video games to some extent, with along like World of Warcraft and stuff. It defined shooters for a long time, first-person shooters. For good and for bad, it was like a trend setter. And the sub-series Call of Duty Black Ops is getting a new installment, Black Ops Cold War, which had an open beta recently. And we both tried it out, and that's what we're previewing today, talking about our feelings about the upcoming installment based on our experience with the beta. So I guess we should really quickly, as we often do, talk about our past experience. How much Call of Duty have you played?
I think I've played all of the major releases since Call of Duty, the third one, in 2004.
That's when they still were World War II.
Yeah, I think I got that one for the Xbox 360, and that was my first kind of jumping point into it. Before that, I had played like Wolfenstein Enemy Territory on the PC, and other like shooters like Counter-Strike and Team Fortress. But then Call of Duty came along, and that was the kind of like, cinematic, you get to play your favorite war scenes from these war films, which, when you're young, I was already a little bit too old at the time to be in the target audience, which kind of makes a troubling statement on its own, because I think 18 at the time.
Right. Yeah, good point, since the subject matter isn't exactly designed for teens necessarily.
Right. So I had like from the beginning a very weird relationship with them, in the fact that I've always marveled at how good the gameplay is, how fun the mechanics are, because they clearly spend a lot of time with psychologists and, people who are masters at the craft in making things feel addictive and fun. So playing them is great. I've always had huge issues with how they depict war, how they depict politics, and it's just gotten worse over the years. Last year I didn't review it, but I played through the campaign of their reboot of the Modern Warfare title.
Right,
and
yeah.
We've been playing the Warzone thing.
Yes.
Which is probably the least political that Call of Duty gets.
I mean, it's just a glorified little sandbox game thing. Like, that's easiest to like detach from from politics, even though there's glaring political influences there simply by setting it in a Eastern European place, and you're kind of playing a foreign power intruding there. But still,
right. And that's the one that I've been kind of happy to see that they have, with all the microtransactions and the costumes and all that, they've been moving towards that Fortnite direction where it's so cartoony that it is removed from real events.
Yes, isn't the character model you use the most is the one who has like cat ears on her helmet and like yoga pants, so
Yeah, and has a helicopter that has, written on it that cutie pie or something like that. So it's very, very silly. But the campaign itself for Modern Warfare was immensely troubling.
It's the last year's one specifically. We're talking about the 2019 Modern Warfare.
Yeah, something that just they were very heavily trying to push the thing that we are not political. We are not, making just a fun game. But that game was entirely about the fact that you are playing a CIA and MI6 Special Forces agent group that are given powers to go to whatever country they like, to do whatever they like in the name of justice and liberty, as long as it serves American interests.
Yeah. There was an infamous Highway of Death thing cover-up. Do you remember reading about that?
Yes, in the game, there's the Highway of Death, which is, for those who don't know, that was the thing where American forces bombed and murdered hundreds of escaping civilians and troops who were trying to get away.
Yeah, this was the closing hours of Desert Shield, Desert Storm. Well, the first Iraq War in the end of the 90s. At the beginning of the 90s. The one where they invaded Kuwait and the US intervened to chase them out.
Right. I think at this point we can probably start calling it the Infinite War because it's been going on since the 80s and has not stopped for about 40 years now. We're now going into the 50th year of war.
Yeah, the name keeps changing every once in a while, the war, but yeah.
Right, they rebrand it.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, God.
Yeah, but in the game, that Highway of Death is there. Like, the visuals have been meticulously made to look like the footage from the National Geographic and the Time magazine pictures. So you will see, there's like bodies that are charred inside cars, and there's, skeletons and horrific sights all over the place. And the game explicitly goes and points to the player, oh, Russia did this.
Yeah, I mean, they frame it as being a highway of death in a completely different conflict with, completely different actors, and they pin it on Russia, like the Russian troops did this. So I guess that's supposed to be their scapegoat, is that, oh yeah, this is a different conflict altogether. But, you can't ignore, the name and the footage. You can't like divorce that from what's in the game.
No, and I've been saying this for quite a while, and it's upset a lot of people. But saying that you're making an apolitical game when your topics are war and the use of power and, political topics, and trying to say that it's an apolitical thing, or that you're not making a statement by this, those are the words of either an idiot or a coward. You can't really do that. And if you do, then you're just proving that you are already compromised in what you're saying. Yeah,
and it's an attempt of trying to like sell to as many people as possible. The people you're trying to like, to people who would be offended by those politics, you're trying to like, mitigate it, while the people who would appreciate it, they're just going to appreciate it anyway. Like, so it's a kind of a empty gesture to try to appeal to everybody. And you're right. It's not a good look.
And considering the history that Call of Duty has of their cooperation with the American military, and especially the American military's recruitment offices, it makes it all that much more worse, because it means that they are inherently working towards a goal, and that goal is to make the military and the military actions, which in the game are almost, exclusively war crimes. to make them seem acceptable, but more than that, make them seem cool.
Yeah, that's exactly. I wasn't super conscious to this myself when I was younger. I mean, of course I was, just owing by the fact that you're always playing as a American or a American aligned character. I was aware of that, but it's become harder and harder to kind of ignore that when stuff like the Highway of Death comes up in their games.
Right. And I think both of us were quite heartily laughing at the trailer for this new Cold War game that is coming out, because, again, they've been trying to kind of do the whole we're not political, and then the trailer itself has Ronald Reagan.
Yes!
Explaining to the players and explaining to the viewers that, you are the heroes, we're going to send you out to do, protect truth and justice in the American way. And it's like, that's about as political as you get.
Yeah, not to mention they're making the assumption that, Reagan is the kind of person I want, lauding me, being my benevolent boss. Like, that's a... Well, I mean, I guess there is an audience for Reagan, so... But I don't subscribe to that myself, if we're perfectly honest.
Well, I have a theory about this. Do you want to hear it?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, we're going to put our tinfoil caps on for just a little bit.
All right, let me just adjust it there. Good. Now all the Zeta radiation will be blocked nicely.
Yes. I personally think that a lot of the generation of gamers who are right now the target audience have immense daddy issues. And hear me out.
Yeah?
I think that the games themselves are very heavily pushing that, because even though there's a lot of jokes about the whole God of War and the boy memes and all that, that game is entirely about getting approval from your distant but gruff and masculine alpha father.
Yes.
The Modern Warfare's campaign reintroduces a fan favorite character called Price. Price is a older, gruff, grizzled veteran of multiple wars who speaks in this kind of soothing, working class English accent, who keeps calling you son. All of the game is designed that every time you do something that he approves of, there's this immense amount of endorphins that come out from his approval. In Call of Duty, the Cold War, the trailer features around the table, there's a character who's seen briefly who looks exactly like Robert Redford's character from Tony Scott's really, really good film Spy Game. And in that, he played the father figure for Brad Pitt's character, like another grizzled veteran agent for the CIA, with a heart of gold who wants to protect his protege. And Ronald Reagan made his career as an actor by portraying these kind of father figures who people looked up to. So there's a consistent theme of hiring and finding father figures who are known for being kind of distant, but this kind of who will prepare you for the world. Essentially, Mufasa's for gamers.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's a coincidence. I don't think I'm that crazy. But it's been something that's been on my mind for a couple of years now, looking at how especially these AAA titles are being built and what the themes in them are. They're mostly about parentage, and they're mostly about fathers, and very rarely is it about negative parentage. It's always about finding the approval of your patriarchal side.
I think there is some merit to that. It would make sense if we go by the theory that the games industry kind of hasn't really, or if it is changing its demographics that it's catering to, it's doing it very slowly. So assuming they're still catering to the people, the same people they were like 10 years ago, those people would now be at that age where they would they're at father age themselves, starting to be there. So there might be some not just like seeking that approval, but also like more of putting themselves in the shoes of those character archetypes.
Right, and all art at some point, it reflects the society at the time. Games are a little bit slower because it takes so long to make a game.
Yeah.
But if you look at the mid to late 2000s, a lot of the games that were coming out at the time, your Portals, your Half-Lives, all the games that were big hits at the time, they were about the distrust of government, the distrust of parental figures, the distrust of establishment.
Yeah.
And that was because it was a time of, we were going into a Great Recession. We were losing, the war in the East had been going on for much longer than the government had claimed it to be going. There was just general distrust for everything, and that was reflected in all the games. It wasn't always, eloquent. At worst, it was crap like Spec Ops: The Line. But at best, you would get something like Portal 2 that would actually talk about a lot of these things through satire.
Mm.
So I think that it's something that is on the mind of developers and on the mind of society as a whole. I don't know if it's depicted in a healthy way at the moment, especially when you start putting in, emotional feedback as a positive thing to the act of killing foreigners.
Yeah, that is a little questionable. I would say so.
But it does lead us back to the cyberpunk thing that I do understand better, having now spoken it out loud. I do understand why it's so important and why it's so unnerving for people to have poor depictions of trans topics at such a time in such a major publication.
Yeah, it is. Also, I just want to bring up, I just Googled, since you mentioned it, I Googled Redford in Spy Game, and oh my god, you are so right. The guy in the trailers of Cold War, he looks exactly like Redford with the coiffed hair, the sunglasses. He's even got the same, leather jacket.
And the chin looks exactly like him. It's like they've got the facial structure almost to a T without having to pay for a license.
Yeah, that is so weird.
Well, it's intentional because they're going for Cold War. So what Call of Duty has always done is that they have taken the visuals, they've taken the iconography of films. Like the World War II Call of Duty games were all almost to a T, they were copied from Spielberg's Saving Private Ryan. And then after that, they've taken it from Platoon, Hamburger Hill, of other Vietnam films. And now they've gone and they've taken up Tony Scott as a kind of figure of who to take the visuals from. Even the color scheme in the Cold War trailer has the kind of sickly hues, the kind of pulsating colors that Tony Scott uses a lot. But I don't think that the people who are directing this game have the social or cultural understanding that Tony Scott had in his films. So we're gonna get a lot of this kind of empty imagery to remind people, even if it's on a subconscious level, that, oh, hey, that looks like a movie star we recognize, and we automatically, those who remember that, who are in that age group that they're trying to reach, will remember Robert Redford, and they'll remember their feelings of Robert Redford as the scoundrel with a heart of gold.
Right. Yeah. That makes sense because that is in the past I've been kind of fine with it. It's kind of fun that they bring up all these classic tropes, but indeed if they use them very ham-handedly, these classic allusions, if they use them ham-handedly, it can result in maybe not being great. the implications therein.
Right, and having said that, and here's where we get to the very conflicting and very difficult part of the conversation, is that having said all that, I had a blast playing this game with you.
Yeah, I mean, I guess this has been a 40-minute political screed so far, which that's going to be interesting to see the reaction to that from people. But if we talk about the actual gameplay, it's fine. It's classic Call of Duty, and it seemed to work perfectly for me.
Yeah, because it's built to be exactly the kind of quick endorphins that we like in the series. Like, I had a ton of fun leveling up the weapons and finding new attachment to them and all that. And it did its very best to silence the, political Jiminy Cricket in my head every time my head would be like, we're in Nicaragua, we're in these fields that are meant to be cocaine fields, and we're shooting these people there, and this is, hugely political and kind of troubling. But at the same time, I'm riding a dirt bike down a mountainside and, shooting a shotgun at the same time. This is really cool. My goblin lizard brain is going, yay, fun.
Exactly. It's easy to get yourself swept in there. So I guess I should say, like, what I was talking about in my own past is I haven't, like, touched the basic multiplayer of Call of Duty since, actually, I think the original Black Ops. This all came back to me rather familiar, of course, after all these years. It's that same classic, very, very like light run and gun gameplay. You can play it. It's not very tactical. Gotta move it carefully, the same way that Red Orchestra, for example, is, which is going for more of a slower pace, more careful shooter experience. And I'd say it's even more run and gun, obviously, than Call of Duty Warzone from last year. And I wanted to ask you, since I haven't played the regular multiplayer of last year's Modern Warfare, but I know you've put time into that. Is this even more like fast-paced, more run and gun twitchy than the regular multiplayer from last year's Call of Duty, would you say? Or is it about the same still?
It's about the same, but I feel like that this one has a more different, it's got different emphasis on the time to kill than the other one. In this one, the kills come faster, in this Cold War than they do in Modern Warfare.
Okay.
And I don't know yet. I haven't decided which one feels better.
Okay.
Because they're paced, the levels are paced so differently. And this is something that, even with all the gripes and all the complaints, I have immense respect for the people who work on, just working on the level design, just working on the gameplay pacing and the gameplay loop. They're immensely talented.
Yes.
Craftsmen. Because, like, one of the levels that we both seem to really enjoy, the Armada, which is 2 aircraft carriers that have collided in the middle of the ocean, and there's like sunken ships around them, and there's two different opposing sides, going from ship to ship. Yeah,
that's a super fun level, and there's like a spy submarine in like the center of the map. That's like a no man's land that people fight over, and there's multiple tiers to the ship above the submarine, so it's
right, and if you fall into the water, you can see, like, it's the kind of Hollywood water where you can see for hundreds and hundreds of meters, and it's crisp and clear, and you can see sharks in the water, and you can see the bullets whizzing by and hitting the surface of the waves and all that. It's really, really visually interesting and fun, and there's constantly a sense that you're going somewhere, because boats they're built for that kind of quick horizontal movement, but also vertical scaling, because you have to look up on different decks to see where people are hiding.
Yes.
It's immensely gratifying and fun.
Yeah, that's my favorite level that was here in the beta, and it, like, when you play the capture the flag mode, domination, or no, assault, there's 2 capture the flags, one of which is that you just have multiple points, and one which you capture 1 point and you're kind of like this tug and war of going from point to point. And it is fun how, like, it switches from one ship to another, and it kind of changes the way you approach every flag. That's very well realized. That's easily the best level.
Yeah. And the thing is that there's nothing like that in the Warzone multiplayer. The levels in the Warzone multiplayer are extremely basic. They're not bad, but they are designed in such a drastically different way that comparing them to Cold War is nearly impossible, because the pacing is so different in terms of where you're going and how you're going about them. The actual gunplay is about the same. The weapons, of course, handle a bit differently, because it's, I think Warzone was done by Treyarch, and I think this is done by Raven Software. So there's multiple teams that have different ideas of how to allow players to handle weapons. Yeah,
absolutely. That's what they've been doing for a decade now, is that they've been switching off basically, who works on which Call of Duty, which means that there actually is different design goals in these games. But of course, for the casual consumer, it's just a string of Call of Duties. So that's why it's worth it to always contrast with the previous one, what the gameplay is like.
Right. And they're not necessarily bad choices, they're just different choices.
Yeah.
And I've enjoyed the multiplayer now in Warzone a lot. I think we play it at least a couple of nights a week together. Yeah,
specifically the actual Warzone mode, so not the the quote-unquote normal multiplayer, the actual Battle Royale. Like, that's what we've been... That's like our multiplayer jam at the moment.
Yeah, and I think for me, that pacing is exactly right. I prefer the moments of quiet and moments of lull in between action, because it lets me regroup, it lets me have a moment of just, shit-talking with the team, and have this kind of where are we going next? Because it feels like that then you're on this, one of my favorite genres of film, which is the men on a mission thing.
Yeah.
And I like that. I really like that feeling when you get it in games. But right now, because we haven't had access to the Cold War version of the Warzone, if there even is going to be one, I think that it might be a little too fast-paced for me, the just general multiplayer.
Yeah, this is definitely another philosophical game philosophy thing that we don't have time to go fully in, but I'm a single player guy most of the time. I never really been huge on multiplayer anyway. It stresses me out, especially team-based multiplayer a lot of the time. And Warzone with friends has been my jam for that sense. There's also just that it feels less valuable, a victory in one of those crazy free-for-all fights that you have in regular multiplayer. It's just this time your team won, yay, versus the couple of times we've actually scored a victory in Warzone. That felt like, a hero's journey, basically.
Right. And it's the kind of, how do I put it? It is the kind of nonsense that I prefer, in the sense that with multiplayer, it kind of happens really hectically. Suddenly it's over, and you're like, what happened? Whereas in Warzone, because there is the pauses, you get to take stock in how ridiculous it is, that you go from a moment where we're running up the stairwell in a building trying to escape some enemies who are haunting us. We jump off the building, with a parachute into a car, drive the car away as a helicopter chases us.
Yeah.
And then once we're safe, we have a moment to go, well, that was ridiculous.
Yeah. Whew.
Yeah, what do we do next? And then we have the clear kind of movement into another thing. Whereas in a multiplayer mode, all that would happen within 3 minutes, and it would be over, and it wouldn't give us the moment afterwards where we get to internalize it and then later on talk about how ridiculously fun or aggravating that was.
Yeah, in regular multiplayer, it's more of that salty, oh god, I died again, oh god, I can't beat this guy, oh god,
Yeah. The amount of swearing that happens is exponentially higher in a multiplayer.
Yeah, I would say so. All that said, there is a side of people who... There is a group of people who are Battle Royaled out, obviously, and I think this is... If you're in the classic Call of Duty multiplayer camp, as far as my limited knowledge tells, this is that, and it works very fine. The moment-to-moment gameplay as a simple time waster multiplayer thing. I think it's good.
Yeah, I really liked it. I really like that they had, even into the small normal maps, that they have added more vehicles. I like those a lot.
That's very cool. Yeah.
Yeah. For example, the dirt bikes and the jet skis are absolute favorites. They're so much fun.
Yeah, again, adding to how much fun that Armada level is. At the beginning of the level, when the whole team just jumps on those jet skis and races off for the big boat, there's something really charming about that.
Oh yeah, and even if you don't manage to get one of the ships that's going out, or one of the smaller vessels, it's really cool to be on one of the... Because you're going from ship to ship with the grappling hooks and all that, and you can just look underneath and see 6 or 7 jet skis roaring past you while others are coming towards them, and they're all firing at each other, and it looks like an expensive Michael Bay film.
Yeah. It looks like you're on the set of Waterworld.
Right. And it's great. It's fun.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's good stuff. It's not really what I'm looking for, as we just said. It's not my cup of tea to some extent, but I can't say it's terrible either.
No, I think it's going to be exactly what fans want from that. So it's already... The people who buy and play Call of Duty games are the kind of people who also... Like, they're not probably the same. It's not the Venn diagram where they overlap, but they are in the same kind of category as the ones who play the FIFA games or the NHL games.
Right.
They will buy them year after year, regardless of the game, because that's just what they play. And I know some people in my friends group who only play the FIFA games. They will buy the newest FIFA game, and they will play that for a year religiously, and then they'll buy the next one.
Yeah, and I have to say, this is probably a hot take from me, but I think that's one of the least of... The lesser sins a company can do is, like, recycling content and only, like, dolling it up a little bit. Like, there's clearly an audience for that. And I don't think that audience is being lied to. So I don't really find it problematic, honestly.
No, they're told exactly what they're going to get, and the people who want to play those and want to buy into that that's it. That's great. That's for them. It's not for us, probably. I didn't buy the Warzone game until much later when I wanted to try out the multiplayer. And I don't think I would have bought it if I didn't have the curiosity to go and look at the campaign so I would know what I was talking about.
Yeah.
Other than that, I would have probably just stuck with the free Warzone mode that we've been playing.
Yeah.
And this one I will review, because I am, again, interested in the campaign. I'm interested in the political aspect of it, which is a much different thing that you usually do, but I'm glad we get to talk about it.
Yeah.
But, like, at the same time, I don't think I'm just the target audience for a yearly release. Like, I don't find myself sitting around and thinking that I need to go and play this right now.
Not at least Call of Duty. Like, I'm a simple gamer and I'm easily entertained, but at least not the multiplayer of Call of Duty, because, like I said, multiplayer just in general isn't my jam. So this is a little bit. This isn't really. It's fine, but this is not actually. This is the game I'm least interested in that we've done all across these episodes of podcasts, if we're being perfectly honest here.
Which I think it comes across with the fact that we spent about 45 minutes talking about everything else except the game. Yeah,
except the actual content of it. Yeah, including speculation of what could go wrong with the game.
But I mean, there's only 5-6 levels in the multiplayer.
Let's get a really quick overview. There's 3 game modes. We talked about the very basic multiplayer, which has some King of the Hill features. There's a 6v6 VIP mode, which reminded me a lot of Counter-Strike, and not just because Counter-Strike had a VIP mode back in the day, but this also works in the way of it's 6v6 and you play several rounds, and whoever gets to 4 wins first, playing VIP mode, wins. That had 2 maps, I think, and I wasn't super interested in that one.
It was fine, but I think we played it once, and that was it.
Yeah. And then there's another 2 maps, which are for the Dirty Bomb mode, which, at the same time, I think was the most interesting, because it's the closest to Battle Royale in this beta.
Also not political.
Yeah, oh my god, yeah, no, certainly. Dirty Bomb, there's nothing weird. That's fun for the whole family.
Yes.
That sounds like a RoboCop commercial.
No, I was laughing really hard at that when we started playing it, and then we were like, no idea what to expect. And then the thing starts, and it's like you are in Russia, and you're playing 2 sides, and the other side is like this very, stereotypical American voice, the CIA going like collect the uranium into the dirty bomb before the other side gets there. And I'm just sitting there going like, he said apolitically. Just
with zero politics in his tone.
Yeah, absolutely no conflict there.
Yeah. But no, yeah, what that gameplay mode is that you're supposed to gather resources, to put it in the most non-political way, and take them to the collection point, which you are then supposed to blow up because you're setting up a bomb. And it plays a little bit like a Battle Royale. You have a fly-in, and you have to collect boxes in the environment, which is where you find the most uranium, and it's like several teams against each other at the same time. At the same time, you have respawns all the time, and you're not fighting to be the last team alive. You're fighting to hit a score by blowing up the bombs. All that said, I thought it was pretty interesting. A little bit more hectic than Warzone, and I'd rather just play Battle Royale. But it was an interesting thing to play.
Yeah, it was fine. It was the maps are quite small, but I think that this is something we talked about when we were playing it, is that you could see the seams where, if they do make a war zone, where the seams, attach.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the maps, especially for the dirty bombs and for the multiplayer maps, at least in the Modern Warfare and in the Warzone, they're all the same thing. Like the Warzone map in the multiplayer modes is divided into multiplayer maps then.
Yeah.
So in this, you could clearly see the places where the Cold War maps have been kind of taken apart and where they would make into a big Warzone map. And I think that if they manage to do that, it's going to be really fun, because these were diverse areas. There was a really cool place that was like a wooded area that had like ski lifts and lodges and all that, and that could easily lead to an area that's more hillside with vertical combat happening all the time. All that seemed like that could be really cool. That said, I was not a fan of the Dirty Bomb mode at all. I think it was too hectic, and I think that they had a big issue with it, that the boxes that you went to find weren't as clear to me as they are in like Warzone.
Good point. There's less of them, yeah, and they don't really glow in any way.
Yeah, Warzone has done a really good job with both sound and visual cues, telling players where to go. Like, you hear the hum of the boxes, and it trains you this kind of Pavlovian reaction that you hear the hum, you have to go look for a box. And there's either the blue or the orange kind of hue that comes out of them that tells you exactly what you're looking for. In this, they were all kind of nondescript. They were kind of greenish gray boxes that were really hard to see in some places.
Yes, you're absolutely right. And there just aren't very many of them. There comes a point where you actually just turn into regular deathmatch to collect, because every killed enemy drops 1 uranium, and it kind of feels like you eventually just have to do that.
Right, and it's really hard to tell apart from those boxes what you could do, because there were times when I shot somebody and he didn't seem to have dropped that much stuff, but suddenly I had like a full inventory of uranium at hand. So I was never really certain of where I was getting it or how I was getting it. And then just running to the place and having to sit by the thing as it unloads it off of me. It felt really dated. Like, I would have preferred that there would be, like, for example, an action that you have to take, like a button press at least, or something, apart from just standing there and shooting. Because that's the kind of game design that I find to be kind of soporific.
Sure, that makes sense. Yeah, if we're perfectly honest, the biggest excitement for me is the prospect of what the Battle Royale map could be like, since the one in Warzone, the current one, it's a mainly urban map that has started to bleed into itself after the hours we've put into. While if the one in Cold War is going to be what these two maps are implying, it's going to be a much more wilderness-oriented map with actual, like, real variance with the terrain, since one is a completely snow-covered place and the other is a more summery wood. So if there's going to be that much variance in the map, that could be really cool. That's maybe the one thing I'm most looking forward to.
Yeah, same, because we've now spent about a year with Warzone, which means that at its best, a single map really has been picked clean at this point. I think we've seen most, if not all, of the secrets that it has, because they haven't updated them that much into it. There's been a couple of things to do with the bunker silos, and now with the Halloween stuff, and I think that that's showing that the moment the Halloween stuff came in, especially the zombies mode that we've been playing now, it gave new life to it because it was something different to do. But I feel like that if nothing drastic happens in the next couple of weeks when this game comes out, there's a good chance that it's going to be less and less in our weekly roster of things that we play together.
Yeah, that seems very likely. But, all right, let's start wrapping it up here. So in conclusion, it was fine. It was fine. It was Call of Duty. And I have some marginal interest in it, but the regular multiplayer, it didn't, I'll put it this way, it didn't make me go, oh, right, this is what it's about. I need to get back into this scene. I was more of, well, that was fun.
Yeah, same. I'm interested in it on a purely cultural level at this point. It's a curiosity.
Yeah.
I enjoyed playing it. I expect to enjoy playing it because it's made with such a massive budget, with such talented people, that if it was not fun to play, I would be more surprised.
Yeah.
I'm unsurprised that it was fun to play. I was expecting that from the start.
Yeah.
We're probably not going to get it immediately. We're probably not going to, talk about it again in a long while, unless, something really interesting comes out with it, with the extras.
Or unless Activision is cool enough to release the next Battle Royale for free as well, the same they did with last year's Call of Duty.
Which is what we're hoping for.
Yeah, I'm hoping for. And honestly, they've set a precedent now, since we're able to, clearly it has been a success, the previous Warzone. So they've set a precedent now that they can make a successful separate game mode for free. So it would actually kind of look bad for them if they can't provide something for like the free players with the release of Cold War.
Well, that I think worries me a little bit because while they set a precedent that there is a free version in Warzone, Warzone has become such a massively successful game on its own, thanks to microtransactions, the season passes and everything, that breaking off now to make a second Warzone with a different developer, because that's the thing, these play completely different in terms of gunplay, and I don't think that you're going to be able to get the fans to switch. Like, for example, I was thinking initially that they would put both maps into rotation, so that depending on which batch you're playing, you'll end up, in the Cold War map or in Verdansk, which is the Modern Warfare Warzone. But then you would also have to factor in that these have been developed by different people and different teams who have different ideas of how to handle guns.
Yeah.
So they would have to build a separate Warzone launcher for both Warzone games and split the player base on that.
I guess that's a good point, yeah.
Yeah, but arguably they have 70 million players right now. Splitting that would mean there's only 35 million players per Warzone, which is more than most games ever have.
Not to mention, again, the group of people who are getting fatigue from the regular one, who might like a new Warzone with different design goals might be the jolt they need.
Exactly. So hopefully, I'm right there with you. I hope that they come out and say that, in 2 weeks when we get the new Call of Duty, we're going to get a new Warzone and we're going to get it for free. And it's going to be, the big map that we've been hoping for. I hope that happens because I will be there day one and I'll be playing the hell out of that.
Yeah, same. Absolutely. It is definitely, I will check that out. I've been converted enough by the current Warzone to be interested in that.
All right.
I think that's about it for today. We are, it was fun. We'll see where it goes. But thank you again, everyone, for listening. It was a pleasure, as always, to have our little chit-chat here. Why don't you tell the folks what you are working on lately, Jonathan?
I just started yesterday playing a game that I am not allowed to talk about.
Ooh!
I can say I'm playing a game, but I can't say anything about it just now. But since we don't know when this episode is coming out, you'll probably, by the time you hear this, you'll probably see it on my website. I'll be doing a couple of Let's Plays on it, at least, and a review. It is interesting. It's a game. I can say that it is a game.
Ah, thank goodness.
Yeah. Anything other than that, I am playing the hell out of Hades. not intended. But that is probably my game of the year at this point.
Wow, really?
It's the best marriage of storytelling and gameplay that I have seen in years. It is just, every time I play it, I feel this immense amount of joy, of just the joy of discovery, the joy of exploration, the good writing, the wanting to learn more about the characters. Like, it's a roguelite, and I'm not usually a fan of them, but it does everything so well in terms of how it rewards the player with progression that it makes the act of failing feel like a reward itself.
Amazing praise. I've heard it said it's good, but to jump ahead in such a busy year, to jump ahead as your favorite, that's super impressive.
I was really certain that this year I would not be surprised by anything anymore. Like, I was surprised by Final Fantasy VII, which was my previous game of the year. And it's still high up there. That's because of nostalgia and everything. But I was expecting Cyberpunk to be good, and I hope it still is, with all the troubles. But this one I had been following, and I had liked Bastion, which is their previous game. I didn't like their other one, which came out after Bastion.
Transistor.
Yeah, I was not a huge fan of Transistor, even though I really liked the story in it.
Okay.
But this one, I started playing it, and I figured I would give it like an hour, because I was really busy that day, and I'm like, I'm going to put 1 hour aside, I'm going to play that. And I played the 1 hour, and I put it away, and for the rest of the day when I was doing other stuff, I couldn't stop thinking about it. So I came back in the evening around 10 o'clock, and I played until like 3 in the morning, because I just couldn't put it down. I wanted to find more, I wanted to do more with it, and when we're done here, I'll probably go back and play it some more.
You were done with being a responsible adult, and you were like, goodbye, sleep schedule.
Yes, goodbye everything. I want to play this. I want to see what happens next with these mythological characters.
Fantastic.
It's so good. I have nothing but praise for it.
Very cool, very cool. And I assume you will probably have an article dropping on this as well, then.
Yeah, probably. I don't think it's already gotten praise from everybody, but I don't think like my praise will do much more with it, but I will tell everybody who I see to play it because it's so good. But what are you doing these days?
Well, let me tell you, we are playing, I jumped into that very indie game, Light Fairy Tale, because, there's no Final Fantasy VII on the PC yet, so let me jump into this super indie game that's riffing heavily on the visual looks of FF7. It's about to end very soon, guys. Like, probably the series will be done by the time this episode comes out. It's only 7 episodes long, plus 1 bonus speed run, so I recommend it. It was a pretty cute game. Go check that out. In addition to that, we are now playing Ys the Oath in Felghana, and we are playing. I'm playing Phoenix Wright still. We've gotten to the third case, Turnabout Samurai, which at the moment is my favorite of the game so far. So I'm still thrilled by that game. Ys the Oath in Felghana is as good as Ys fans have said. Like, I'm really, really thrilled by this action RPG as well. So I'm really happy with the games I'm playing at the moment. I hope it transmits to you guys watching at home as well.
I've been enjoying them. I've been trying to watch them whenever I get a chance.
Oh, thank you. Okay, well, that's great to hear that they've been hitting home for you.
Yeah, they're not the type of games I usually play, so it's been really cool to watch and kind of get into them that way, because I have so little time when I do that I don't have the chance to play all the games that I would like to, even if they look interesting. So this is great that I can just watch and see how you play them, because you know them way better than I do. Yeah,
I hope I can transmit some of that informativeness. That's what I always try to do, is kind of break down the gameplay and the story beats and the presentation even as I'm playing. So I hope that provides some value to you and everyone else watching as well.
Yeah, it does.
Groovy. Well, thank you again, everybody, for listening in. Thank you, Jonathan, for having this very, very, how should I say, illuminating discussion. This was very interesting today, wasn't it?
Angry politics for everybody.
Yeah, I'm sweating bullets here a little bit, waiting to see what kind of comments we get. You know, I don't know if you remember, but way back when we started the show, Minsk and Friends, in our inaugural Borderlands 2 recording, we had an episode where we joked about it because we talked favorably about Call of Duty and we talked favorably about Michael Bay movies, and then we decided to shit on My Little Pony a little bit, and I was just waiting for the comments, like dreading for months, like, oh my god, this is gonna balloon in the worst possible way. And now all those fears are back for me as we release this episode. It's not that bad. I don't worry about it.
Did anybody come and complain about the My Little Pony stuff?
No, I think because at that point we were being facetious, because we were like, well, you know, we're upsetting this many people, might as well go all in.
Right. And I mean, we didn't even get into my beef with Michael Bay movies these days. So, I mean, if we really want to anger them, we'll do it next time. We'll just talk about why Michael Bay is dangerous.
Oh, well, I don't... Actually, yeah, no, I'm pretty sure we'd be upsetting different people in that case. But yes, I think that would also cause some waves if... well, we'll see. We'll see. All right, but before we get banned any further from any platforms, let's call it for today. So I hope you guys look forward to more stuff from us in the future. Bye-bye!
Bye.